Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum. I am your host Faisal Raza Khan and you are watching Foresight. Viewers, 28th Conference of Parties under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change just kick-started in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Pakistan's high-level delegation is led by caretaker Prime Minister Anwarul Haq Kakar. As we all know that Pakistan is the most vulnerable but as well as the most resilient nation, and pleading the case of climate justice, climate action, climate smart technologies, and obviously the finances and investments. Good news is that the Loss and Damage Fund, which was realized and launched in COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, is just operationalized with a seed money of $575 million, and the most contributor is the European Union along with United Arab Emirates. This Loss and Damage Fund will lead to help all those countries who are vulnerable, including Pakistan. It is the win-win situation for whole of the developing world. How this is going to be implemented, what are the contours of this Loss and Damage Fund, along with that, how Pakistan is resilient to accept all these technologies, investments and finances, and how much we are ready for that. We will discuss this in our program, and for this discussion we have in our studios Dr. Wasim Ishaq. He is the senior analyst. Most welcome to you, sir. And we have online Brigadier Hamid Rashid Malik Sahib. He is also the senior analyst, so most welcome to you, sir, as well. So the first question, Dr. Wasim, that it is a heartening news that right at the start of COP28, Loss and Damage Fund is operationalized with the considerable amount. So how do you see this operationalization and particularly the contours of Loss and Damage Fund?
Thank you, Faisal. I think Pakistan has demonstrated a great success in its diplomacy. On account of COP27, where Pakistan was the biggest actually suggester of some sort of Loss and Damage Fund for the developing countries and underdeveloped countries who have been affected by the climate change the most, despite, and for example, the case study of Pakistan, who is just not contributing more than 1% in the global emissions, whereas it has suffered the most, especially in the year 2022. We have a history after every 2 to 3 years that a year goes with an absolute drought in one part of the year and absolute floods in the next part of the year. So Pakistan is one such country in the entire South Asia which has been affected the most. So having seen the damages and losses of 2022 floods, where Pakistan suffered almost 30 billion US dollars in terms of men and material, and 30 million population had suffered because maybe certain houses damaged or displacements. So in the overall context, Pakistan suggested for Loss and Damage Fund in COP27, which was approved, and at the start of COP28 on the day one, the world has acknowledged and they have contributed, and so far 575 million US dollars have been gathered in Loss and Damage Fund.
Yeah, definitely it is a heartening news as well, but it is again a success for the host country United Arab Emirates as well, because right at the first day, first hour, this Loss and Damage Fund was operationalized, and some of the generous contributions are already pledged and committed by some of the countries, and hoping that more countries will contribute. Brigadier Hamid Rashid, how do you see particularly this success at the COP28 and particularly regarding the host country United Arab Emirates?
Starting in 1997 with the Kyoto Protocol, moving to the Paris Agreement, and now the COP28, we see that the member state, 197 member state and the international organization, they have joined their hand that there should be something practical and pragmatic to support the countries which has been badly affected by the climate change. And I would also like to say that Dr. Wasim has very elaborately highlighted the miseries and the suffering that Pakistan received last year because of the climatic change. And now what we see that this is a silver lining. And here I would like to highlight that its fate should not be like the Green Climate Fund, where all countries contributed, but when we see that its distribution was again was affected by the bureaucratic hurdles, as well as there was not just distribution. That is why now Pakistan's stance is that the climate change addressing effects should be justified and justifiable, and a major share should be given to the countries which has been badly affected by the climatic change.
So, Dr. Brigadier Hamid, when we are talking about particularly such type of funds, we are also propagating a lot about the climate financing, like the Green Climate Fund and all others. So, do you think that those would also be taken care of, and a developed world must have to be responsible on that front as well?
If we see in the context of transition from the present fossil fuel energy production as well as its use in agriculture, we need to realize that moving for the transformation from the present system of energy production and going for the less emission of the carbon and other toxic materials, there need to be a technological advancement which also need to be shared. And it is cost effective mechanism, and it is very cost effective, will be difficult for the developing countries like Pakistan, whose economy is already having certain problem areas. Here I would like that this fund is of great immense value for the developing countries like Pakistan, and its distribution also need to be rationalized. That is why our Prime Minister is again harping on the point that the just climate change effort need to be done by the developing countries as well as the developed countries. Here I would also like to highlight that EU by 2030 is going for the least carbon emission industry products, and if we go for the export to the EU, it will be a challenge which Pakistan will have to face. So in that context, our industry also needs to rationalize, our agriculture also needs to rationalize, and for that revolution and for that transformation, we require funds. And I think this loss and damage fund will be of great immense value, and it should be for the targeted nations and communities. And if we see the damages caused by the climatic change to Pakistan, I think Pakistan is the most justified nation and community to receive such funds, and also the technological collaboration and advancement by the advanced countries.
Your point well taken, Dr. Wasim. When we are talking about the COP28, United Arab Emirates was very enthusiastic and given the theme COP for all and COP of action. So do you think that after the realization and the implementation phase started of loss and damage fund, it is really a COP which according to the theme?
I totally agree with the theme, and I'm really impressed by the way this conference has started. You have to realize that today we live in an interconnected and a globalized world. If something happens in one part of the world, tomorrow it would happen in the other part of the world. And if, let me quote Antonio Guterres when he visited Pakistan, and he said that Pakistan is hit by the climate the most. Today it is Pakistan and tomorrow it will be yours.
Definitely.
So this is how the world, globalized world is interconnected.
Definitely, so it's a transboundary phenomena.
Okay. So in that context, as the world leaders have gathered in Dubai, and we have seen very enthusiastic speeches from the world leaders which have so far they have made, I am very optimistic that each one of us is very conscious that climate change must be handled and upfront. So in that context, I would give entire credit to Pakistan's diplomacy since last a year or so, that we have been involved in very actively in all the multilateral, international as well as national forums with effect of the climate change, and how we would like to mitigate the adverse effects of climate change.
Yeah, definitely.
So in that case, it's a total success for Pakistan.
Viewers, we also welcome here Dr. Shaukat. He is the senior economist, so most welcome to you, sir, as well.
Shahid.
And Dr. Shaukat, when we are talking about Pakistan's case, just last year floods in 2022, there were at least $30 billion of the damages and losses Pakistan has, but international world has committed at least $10 billion, but Pakistan needs more. But that was also underpledged, or you can say that it was not provided in a detailed manner. So how do you see that? Because the commitments are there, but that was not realized. So, what is in the context of loss and damage?
Basically, you just rightly mentioned that we need more than $30 billion for this GDP recovery or for the rehabilitation and reconstruction of the damages we have experienced in the country, and definitely we have this financing gap. But beside those $30 billion or direct $15 billion loss to the GDP, we have forward and backward linkages of all those sectors, whether it is related from the agriculture sector, because if your agriculture's production you produce destroyed, for instance, take the example of cotton or other crops, so it has many linkages with your other industry, for example textile industry, and millions of people are associated then with the textile industries. So if one sector of the economy get damaged, it means there are trickle down effects across the economy.
Obviously.
And there will be unemployment, you are pushing more people below the poverty line. So this is not a one time shot or one time intervention. We need these finances on very sustainable basis.
Consistency
and this is not
required.
about just the reconstruction or rehabilitation. We also need support for the adaptation as well, because we all know that Pakistan is an agrarian economy. Agriculture is the backbone of this country. So in order to keeping in perspective the changing weather patterns, we need to have some kind of modified seed or genetically modified seed and all those advanced technology which are compatible with the agriculture sector. So we need these finances not for one time or for a specific year. We need these things on sustainable basis.
Yeah, definitely. Your point well taken, that Pakistan needs not only the mitigation but also adaptation. So, Dr. Wasim, when we are talking about adaptation, we have seen over the years that developed world is reluctant to invest in adaptation because it's a long process, it's a sustainable process. You have to go long for that, because mitigation is a process you are going currently on that. So how do you see that aspect? Because do you not think that ultimately it is not going to be the realization of the climatic changes?
Thank you. See, there are two aspects to it. One, that since adaptation is a phenomena which is spread over a long period of time, so therefore it requires a long-term commitment. So from my perspective, Pakistan is a country which has all four seasons, and usually a pattern of since 2010 floods and onward till today, we have had 3 major floods. And even if there are not enough rains inside Pakistan, because of the Indus Water Treaty and the limitation of those treaties, we have across the border when there are rains in abundance over there, so they would open up those 2 rivers and ultimately the water would come into Pakistan. Despite that, we were not prepared for those floods. So in that case, these are again the natural and man-made disasters together. So for a long-term mitigation, we have to have internal policy first. So I think in that case, we've done a great job that National Climate Change Policy has already been issued, and which is a very comprehensive policy covering all domains of climate adaptation. Secondly, we have also emphasized and allocated separate head from PSDP for a green fund. So in that case, this adaptation would be inbuilt, whereby the excessive afforestation, then bringing in the clean energy in terms of solar, in terms of wind power, reducing carbon emissions, then transiting from fossil fuel eventually to the electronic vehicles, etc. So although it is long-term based. But why we should be bothered much at this point in time? Because there are projections that if Pakistan does not do all these multidimensional issues today, by about 2045 and 2050, because of the climatic adverse effects, Pakistan's GDP is likely to suffer by 20%, whereas we hardly have a 2 to 3% GDP growth rate as we are transiting now 2024. So if we are not mindful of that, in coming 10 to 15 years, it would be rather, we will not be able to improve that GDP as much as we will be wasting because of the climatic actions.
Definitely, we are coming to the economic side as well, but Brigadier Hamid, how do you see this aspect that loss and damage fund is operationalized, no doubt. Now the implementation phase is going to be kicked off, but whether Pakistan is ready enough to absorb this funding?
I would like to add Dr. Wasim's point of adaptation policy. We need to see that Pakistan is geared up quite well, and Pakistan is giving lot of importance to the climate change. In this regard, it is not only the national climate change policy, which was made in 2012 and then it has been amended in 2021. Pakistan has come with a lot more initiatives also. We see that the National Adaptation Plan, which has been announced in July this year, is also addressing certain gray areas, and financing is also one of the major challenges which Pakistan will face. In this regard, I would also like to highlight the living river, that is the Indus Delta ecosystem, has also been given some attention, that it is now not only the public domain, but also there is a public-private partnership which is required to help our ecosystems and also mitigate and also adaptive strategy for these ecosystem, mangroves and etc. Here I would also like to say that implementation will be a long process. What actually was planned and assessed that 100 billion US dollars would be required for the loss and damage which is being caused by the climate change to the different countries. And up till now, 575 million. So, but at least this is a good start. And I think that Pakistan is now demanding that the implementation should be just. It should be based on the assessment made by the technical committees that how much damage has been caused to different countries and communities, and which are those communities which are being marginalized by the climatic change as well as the natural hazards. In that, what we see, the last year flood and drought was actually projected in a very positive way in the last COP, and I think in COP28, this will be again discussed, that by making a fund like the Green Climate Fund will not be enough, and we will have to see in future also that how this fund is utilized to help the countries which has been affected by the hazards of climate change.
So, Brigadier Hamid, how do you see this, particularly when we are talking about climate financing, climate actions and all that, climate smart technologies along with green growth investments, how do you categorize it?
To answer this, I would like to highlight that nationally determined contribution by Pakistan is a major step which is going to impress the countries in COP28, that Pakistan has aimed to reduce its emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions, by 60%. And this is how it will be achieved. It is by transforming our agriculture also. And they also need that the electric vehicles in Pakistan will be the 30% production in Pakistan will also reduce the carbon emissions. Here, I would like to highlight that Pakistan's share in greenhouse gas emission is about less than 1%. But when it comes to the suffering, Pakistan is among the first 5 countries which has been badly suffered by the climate change. And I think by Pakistan in the past has taken very right steps. They have come with the initiatives like afforestation in KPK, and now the forest area has been almost increased to 6.3% of the land mass. They have also gone for the Recharge Pakistan, that is basically the ecosystem in Pakistan at 5 places will be addressed, and that comes basically near the Manshar Lake and also near the Tonsa Dam, and these are locations which will be given, and the underwater will be recharged, and they will be also helpful in controlling the floods in Pakistan. And then also another project, that is that the vulnerable areas in Pakistan which are badly affected by the floods will be increased from 12% to 15%. So when we see at the federal level, we see a lot of steps are being taken by Pakistan, and Pakistan gearing up to not only address the climatic change commitments at international level, but here we need to also realize that the provincial government also needs to take serious and pragmatic steps in line with the federal government, so that Pakistan is fully geared to utilize loss and damage fund successfully.
Your point well taken. Dr. When we are talking about green growth and to have investments in that area, do you think that we are already on that path, and particularly when because Pakistan's economy is actually going through a very difficult phase, and when you grow, you have more emissions. And if you have more emissions, you have nationally determined contributions that you will curtail it to 50%. So do you think it would be a bit difficult in a scenario where the investments are not there, technology is not there, and you are actually foreseeing a green growth?
Actually, when it comes to finances, it is difficult, but modernization of the agriculture sector or transformation from the industrial industry from this polluting technology to have some environment friendly technology, policies are there, government intervention are there, and now the government is also providing and has announced incentives in the previous budget on the solar panels and other batteries and all those things.
That's a welcoming
yes,
initiative.
These interventions from the government sides are welcoming, and basically these are the right policy interventions. So this will help not only transformation of this agriculture sector or the automotive sector, but we will also have this transformation of the industrial sector, and without these incentives investors will not come, because a huge cost is involved in the adopting environment friendly technology. So if you want to reduce the carbon emission, you need to provide some other incentives to the investors to attract them to invest in the environment friendly technology, and the government is doing the right job, I think.
Dr. Wasim, as Dr. Shahid said, do you think that the technology is now the linchpin when because the developed world has the technologies and they are not entirely ready to transfer it to the developing world? So how much it is important that we should develop indigenously?
This is also very important, but at the moment we do not have the capacity both at the government level, the federal level and the provincial level. But let me also reiterate that industrial revolution of the Europe in 17th century, we have seen a lot of difficulties with respect to climatic. We also have a very recent model of China where, especially in last 7 to 10 years, China has been facing a lot of climatic issues, but then later on they transformed their entire system of production as well as electricity production and the industries. So in last 7 years, China has come a long way in handling those climatic issues, and we have experience of the Europe. So we have two best practices available. So we can draw best lessons from there and apply it over here. While creating an indigenous technology probably at this point in time is difficult, but we can borrow their expertise and invest into those areas, and immediate areas are first, for example, the electricity generation. So rather than just going on the coal power production, we can go on smart technologies, which is already the government is doing a lot. Government has incentivized this sector, and we have seen a lot of things happening on ground. And secondly, agriculture sector. So rather than wasting water, we can go on to water conservation, drip irrigation system. Rather than having just 2 crops, we can have on more better type of seeds, and we can have 4 crops. That's happening in China and in the developed world. So that way a lot of things would happen, will start happening. And thirdly, rather than just burning the waste of agriculture, let's try and preserve and try and dispose it off in some other ways. We'll be able to prevent Lahore as is happening every day.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
These are certain passive
witnessing
measures which we can just do and implement at our own. But for the larger technology, it's a long-term investment and long-term sustainable project. So it will take time, but we will be able to do it.
Well elaborated. Viewers, we are thankful to the contribution of Dr. Shahid Khan, economist who just left, and we have now in our studios Chairman Federal Flood Commission, Ahmed Kamal Sahib. Most welcome to you, sir. Thank you very much for your arrival. Ahmed Kamal Sahib, when we are talking about this important juncture, when the world is grappling into the climate changes, and Pakistan is the most vulnerable country, you have worked very hard during the whole flood season in 2020, and it was devastating. Unfortunately, 1/3 of the country was underwater. So how much we are now out of that disaster, and how much needed right now?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Grateful and thank you very much to the PTV world for giving me this opportunity. Let me share very frankly that the sort of a devastation that we had witnessed, probably that was phenomenal, and the 4 RF document which the Planning Commission of Pakistan developed in the aftermath of that report requires 16 or over 16 billion US dollars as a money in order to restore our facilities on ground. Above all, the damage is to the tune of more than 30 billion. With regard to what have been so far progress we have made, I think that good progress have been made with regard to putting at least those structures and those interventions which had got some minor damages and all that, but at the same time some good progress have been achieved by virtue of developing a major project in the context of water, in the context of flood management, as well as in the context of early warning system. Very recently, about 2 weeks ago, a 40 million US dollar project of Pakistan Met Department has been launched, and by virtue of that there is going to be about 6 to 8 weather radar systems. Those are going to be put in all those gray areas where we don't have such sort of a facility.
That is a kind of early warning
That
to
is a
floods and all that.
Yes, and apart from that, we have got some far-flung areas where whenever we are struck by the flash floods, the information generation and the information dissemination is very difficult. At those all those places, automatic weather stations have been put in place. To my information, more than 300 stations are already there, and there is a planning, rather there is a now project being implemented with additional 400 automatic weather stations. I think that that is going to tremendously improve the forecast capability of Pakistan.
So, when we are talking about the commitments of the international community, especially after those devastating floods, so do you think that those pledges, those commitments were met and those were not underfunded? What's the scenario?
I should say that yes, underfunded, that is correct, number one. Number two, with regard to the flood management subject, there are some good commitments coming from EAD, that is Islamic Development Bank has agreed to provide 240 million US dollars for the implementation of very important interventions of flood, $100 million by the Chinese government as a grant. Apart from that, $25 million by JICA, Japanese government, and 152 packages by the Asian Development Bank. So, this is something good. Apart from that, $120 million is going to be provided by the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, for which Economic Affairs Division as well as Planning Commission of Pakistan have finalized the details of the projects, and all those projects are part of the National Flood Protection Plan 4, and this is very heartening. But at the same time, the speed with which we need such money and we need to implement the interventions on ground, probably that is not there, and mainly because we are helpless till the time we get the matching funding from the donors. I think that today in the COP, as of now, probably 530 or 540 million
$575 million
have been pledged under
it is just the seed money. This is just the start.
The start under loss and damage fund.
Yes.
I think that Pakistan, because Pakistan was basically behind the establishment of this fund.
Yeah, definitely.
Last year, and Pakistan should move very proactively in order to have its major role towards the overall mechanism and overall operationalization of
taking
this.
Your point, taking your point, Brigadier Hamid, as Ahmed Kamal Sahab said, that this loss and damage fund, this is only the operationalization, and then we have a seed money of $575 million. It is for the developing world, but it needs to be implemented at the fast pace. Now, it is said that World Bank is going to steer this funding, and implementation will be done by them, but there would be an independent board which would be under United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. How do you see this mechanism, whether it is going to be more bureaucratic hurdles or the funding will be available at the swift basis?
If we see the conflict between the global north and the global south, in that context, I think World Bank will be again facing a lot of bureaucratic hurdles, and implementation may not be that just which Pakistan and other countries, especially the developing countries, would like to see. Here we also have to understand that during the COP23, the global stocktake will also critically review the nationally determined contribution of 197 countries, and especially the developed countries, how they are going to help the developing countries and underdeveloped countries. In that case, I think this fund is of paramount importance, and its implementation especially need to be very just, fair, so that the global south doesn't feel that it has been again marginalized by the global north. And here in the global south, what we see, these are basically the developing countries or the underdeveloped countries. And in our present international financial system, where IMF and the World Bank holds the, I think, power, and in that context, World Bank will be under, I think, a lot of critical analysis and review by the global south, and World Bank now need to come clean, and it also have to obey all the board, supervisory board decisions, as well as implementation and strategies, whatever framework has been made by that board. And also World Bank need to dole out money to the deserving countries at priority and at a fast pace, so that whatever transformation, adaptation is required in those countries is done at a faster pace.
So, Dr. Wasim, what do you think, what climate action, smart technologies and investment finances means for Pakistan?
As it has been discussed by all the honorable panelists, that Pakistan is one such country which has been affected by the adverse effects of climate change. And I think it is facing such sort of situation every year. So for us as a nation, we have to take certain actions in collaboration with the international community. And rightly so, our Prime Minister is today representing Pakistan in COP28. And he is urging the world to know the difficulties of Pakistan in terms of the vulnerabilities of climate change. And this is a great success for Pakistan, that climate change damage fund has been initiated, and I'm sure there is yet another proposal that other than the voluntary contributions, that the OPEC countries should try and contribute only 3% of their annual profit. Last year, OPEC had $888 billion as a accumulative profit, and if each country should just give $25 billion, which is just not even 10% of that, the entire loss and damage fund today would be more than $200 billion.
So one question arises when in the developed world, that why developed world bear the brunt of the developing countries, although developing countries are bearing the brunt of the developed world because of their progress, their contributions into the climate regarding carbon emissions and all that. So how do you see that? Because this is the notion which is prevailing in developed world.
The climate justice we have enough highlighted at all international forums, and on our behalf the Secretary General of United Nations has also accepted our notion. So it is again a great success. So while we have just contributed not even 1% in the global emissions, it is all because of the developed countries we are suffering. So therefore the world has come to realize that yes, it is the fact, and today let us say it is Pakistan, tomorrow it will be some other country. So in that case, especially the countries of global south, they are all facing almost identical problems and identical climatic effects. So the world has realized. That's why we have seen the positive notion, and all those speakers which have made speeches today, everybody has actually emphasized on this damage fund, and everybody has said that the struggling countries should be given finances in terms of mitigating those adverse effects of climate change. So these are the international collaboration. At national level, as we have highlighted that our national policy is a very robust and very all-encompassing, and as the flood commissioner just highlighted, we have to take certain actions at national level, at federal level, at provincial levels,
definitely,
and adopt those smart technologies, because time is running out. So whatever we can, we need to start, and the first start could be the electric generation, for example. Then we have to change our behavior in terms of the use of motor cars on the roads. We should eliminate those which are producing a lot of smoke, or we can go for alternate use of cars on alternate days, or maybe twice a week or thrice a week, and come back with a better transport system for especially the urban cities. So that way, through these passive and active measures, we should be able to handle these issues upfront without having any international
Definitely, your point well taken. Ahmed Kamal sir, what about green Pakistan, glacial lake outburst floods, risk reduction, flash flood risk reduction? Then we have lots of that, like Living Indus initiative, like we have climate resilient agriculture, Indus Basin would have to be taken care of. Then also some sort of regarding the carbon footprints, we are also putting in the Indus Basin, like you have rightly mentioned about mangroves and all that. So how do you see that perspective?
Let me share with you that whatever plans and whatever projects, those are now being conceived or rather being implemented, all those have a very prominent, you can say, component relating to nature based solutions.
Obviously.
Obviously. And towards that, and the Living with Indus initiative has got 25 very major interventions, which basically Pakistan is now projecting at COP28 as well. And I talked about with you about the plan, that is National Flood Protection Plan 4. It has outrightly indicated more than 250 interventions in the country, where we can not only put the country on the green path, but at the same time we can stop the migration of the people who basically are dependent on their water livelihood, or you can say agriculture livelihood. And because of the migration and because of all that, we are losing those sort of the places. A very prominent aspect among them is the so-called, or you can say the Recharge Pakistan project. Earlier it was, it has the name of flood management through innovative techniques. This project has got 77 million Green Climate Fund grant in the very recent past. A feasibility study has been completed. We have selected 5-6 sites on ground, both sides of the Indus River. And once there is any overspillage of water, that water is going to be taken to those sites, which are the natural sites, and they are going to turn those sites into a natural sort of a wetlands in the future. And by virtue of that, the biodiversity of the area will be revamped, and the flora and fauna as well as the migratory birds whose pattern was changed is going to be rejuvenated or going to be revamped again. I think that all these efforts bear very good.
Thank you very much, Ahmed Kamal Sahab, for your very well elaborated points. Thank you very much, Dr. Wasim, and thank you very much, Brigadier Hamid, for your presence online. Viewers, as our panelists suggested, that Pakistan is gearing up for green growth, and Pakistan is urging, developing world is urging to the developed world that they have to feel their responsibility, they have to take climate action as an immediate step, so that whole of the world must grow together, because it's a shared responsibility. Climate action needs now, and time is running out. We have to implement all those actions, and we have to give them a reality. So this is all today's Foresight. Thank you very much for watching. Allah Hafiz.